Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 9 and for our Business Ethics case project we chose Zara as our case study. In this presentation we will discuss the background of the case, the ethical issues and decision making involved, ethical theories, the Islamic ethical perspective, and finally our recommendations and solutions regarding this case.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We're from Group 9 and our case is about Zara and the Gaza controversy. So firstly, Zara is a Spanish company which was founded in 1975. So it's one of the world's largest company in the world. Zara operates in 90 to 96 countries, like with many customers and employees as well. It also works as store and online platforms too. The company is known as its fast fashion model, which means it produces and distributes clothes quickly with trends. And now I'll be talking about the key stakeholders. Okay, the key stakeholders includes Zara's top management, since they are controlling the company and distributing. Other than stakeholders, Zara's partners, which are in Israel too. Zara's global customer are also key stakeholders because they trust and purchase directly or indirectly from Zara, so they will be the stakeholders. And finally, the Palestinian communities, but it's like directly they contribute indirectly, but still they'll be affecting because Zara's controversial became connected to Gaza's humiliation. Now I'll be talking about the nature of involvements. The main reason Zara became controversial was due to its 2023 advertising campaign called the Jack. The campaign includes many pictures which states that they are doing things which was happening in Gaza, and including this, especially when this advertising went out, the incidents was happening in Gaza, which was the war between Israel and Gaza was happening. So this leads to widespread boycott called the hashtag boycott Zara, and Zara later removed this advertising from its website. And the other one is the previous related controversial, which was in 2021. Senior designer remarked to be viewed as anti-Palestinians, and it also increases criticism and public destruction. And that's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum, and thank you for the previous speaker for setting up the context of this case. My name is Arzanish Ilmam Virus, and now that we understand as the timelines of these Zara's actions, and we must ask ourselves, why do these controversies matter on a moral level? Okay, I will be diving into the ethical significance of this case, the specific dilemmas Zara faced, and also how do they evaluate the transparency of their decision makers. So moving on to the first slide, to understand the ethical significance of this case, we must look at Zara's economic footprint. At the beginning of 2025, Zara expanded its operations by opening a massive 4,500 square meter flagship store in the big fashion Gillette complex near Tel Aviv in Israel. And this decision deepened Zara's economic ties with Israel. So by operating and expanding a multinational kind of business within this context is highly significantly ethical, because this business move occurred at a time where the regime of the Israel Zionists was carrying out mass killings and forced displacement with complete impunity. So the ongoing assault has obliterated Gaza's healthcare, like hospitals, and also education system, that devastated its social and academic fabric in that way. By continuing and expanding its operations or its reign, Zara's actions intersect directly with severe human rights violations, which raises serious questions about corporate complicity and compromises their global ethical standing. Okay, moving on to the second slide, which is the ethical dilemma that is being faced by Zara. So by navigating franchise autonomy and artistic expression against global human rights sensibility. So first, we see a major conflict regarding the franchise autonomy. So Joey Schubel, the owner of Zara franchise in Israel, hosted a campaign event for controversial far-right politician Itamar Ben-Gvir, directly as he's mentioned. And Zara had to decide whether to intervene in a franchisee's personal political actions or stay silent. And then the second one is another dilemma arose regarding artistic expression versus social sensibility. In late 2023, Zara released an ad campaign called The Jacket, which prominently featured a mannequin wrapped in white clothing material, and it symbolizes the way how we bury our fallen martyrs. Okay, critics and the public immediately interpreted this imagery as showing of decency and brazen insensitivity to the victims of the Israel-Hamas war, resembling the shrouded bodies of Palestinians Okay, so Zara was forced to balance defending its creative campaigns and marketing against massive societal backlash. moving on to the third part, which is the decision making and transparency. So when evaluating how the company handled these dilemmas, we see a recurring lack of accountability among key decision makers at the both local and the corporate levels. For example, looking at the corporate leadership, like Vanessa Perelman, the head designer for Zara's women department, she sent direct messages to a Palestinian model, stating that if his people were educated, they wouldn't blow up hospitals, they wouldn't blow up like anything, like schools and stuff. While the company condemned the comments, the internal culture really showed that they allow such discriminatory behavior from a top senior employee. And furthermore, corporate transparency regarding the jacket campaign was highly flawed. Like following the global backlash, Zara removed the images and they stated a public apology, but it seems that they merely regretted the misunderstanding and they shift the blame towards its consumers rather than the company taking real accountability of their actions. So the lack of transparent and responsible decision making has severe global consequences. For instance, like Mahmoud Habash, he's a Palestinian Authority top Sharia judge, issued a fatwa calling for a worldwide boycott of Zara products until the company officially cancels its contract with its operator in Israel. So Zara decisions clearly failed universal ethical standards and utilitarianism. But how do these actions hold up against Islamic principles? To discuss this, I will now pass the floor to the third speaker, who will evaluate Zara's corporate response through an Islamic ethical perspective.
Now I will explain this case from Islamic ethical perspective. From Islamic point of view, Zara do not fully follow Islamic values. This is because their actions and responses shows lack of trust, justice, and care for human. First, Tawhid, which means dignity. In Islam, all humans are connected and deserve dignity. However, Zara used a campaign with images that many people felt similar to scenes of human suffering. This was so insensitive and did not respect human dignity at all. Next, Amanah, which means trust. As a global company, Zara has a responsibility to its customer. However, Zara did not respond quickly at first and only respond after a strong criticism. This raised concerns whether Zara upheld consumer trust. Next, Adil, which means justice. Islam teaches us to avoid any form of oppression. In this case, there have been criticism and boycott calls suggesting Zara may be linked to a controversial system, and this raised concern among consumers about justice. Moving on to Ihsan, which means showing empathy and doing good. Zara later on gave an apology, but many people felt like it wasn't sincere enough and lack of empathy. This really shows that Zara, as a big company, also lack of moral excellence. Lastly, Maslahah, which means public interest. As a company, we should focus on society and people. However, Zara appeared to focus more on protecting its brand image rather than people's feelings. In conclusion, if Zara had followed all these Islamic principles, they could have responded in a more ethical and responsible way.
In this issue involving Zara, several groups were negatively affected by the company's decision and also actions. So the first one, Palestinians in Gaza were harmed emotionally and also symbolically because many people believe that Zara's campaign imagery resembled victims of the ongoing conflict. During a humanitarian crisis, this was viewed as insensitive and also disrespectful. The second one is the individuals affected by anti-Palestinian sentiment also experienced harm. The controversial statements by a Zara designer were seen as discriminatory and also offensive towards the Palestinians, which made people more angry. The third one is the Zara employees and stakeholders were also impacted. The backlash damaged the company's reputation, caused boycotts campaigns, and create financial and professional consequences for workers, investors, and also the brand itself. The next one is the ethical principle. We evaluated Zara based on their honesty, justice, and also accountability. The first one is honesty. Zara partially upheld honesty because the company stated that the campaign was created before the war and publicly condemned offensive remarks made by its designers. However, critics argue that Zara lacked full of transparency regarding its business decision and also ties. The second one is justice. Zara failed to fully uphold justice because the campaign demonstrated poor cultural and situational sensitivity. So in addition, the designer's comments toward Palestinians showed that it has a lack of respect and inclusivity. Although Zara apologized, but many believe the response was insufficient. So the third one is accountability. Zara showed partial accountability by removing the campaign and responding publicly after the backlash. However, the company acted reactively instead of proactively, since stronger preventive actions and engagement with affected communities were lacking. For the application of ethical theories, we use utilitarianism and also deontology to evaluate Zara's actions. The first one is utilitarianism. What is utilitarianism? Basically, it focuses on maximizing overall happiness and minimizing harm. In Zara's case, the campaign and controversies created public distrust, boycott movement, reputational damage, and also emotional harm to affected communities. Therefore, Zara's action did not produce the greatest good for the greatest number of people. The second one is the deontology. Deontology focuses more on moral duties and also ethical obligations. Companies have a duty to respect human dignity and also avoid discrimination. But Zara failed to adequately prevent offensive imagery and discriminatory behavior from employees, which suggests a failure to uphold these moral responsibilities.
Based on this case, Zara should have taken stronger and immediate ethical actions, especially when viewed through Islamic values. First, they should have issued a clear and sincere apology, not a vague statement like, "We regret the misunderstanding, blah blah blah." A proper apology reflects amanah, which is accountability and fulfilling the trust a company has towards society. So second, they should have acted immediately to remove offensive content, like especially the jacket campaign. Instead of quietly deleting it, Zara should have publicly explained why the imagery was harmful. And then this reflects adil or justice, acknowledging harm and correcting it fairly. Third, Zara needed to stop shifting responsibility to franchises and take full accountability as a global brand. Again, upholding amanah. Stronger actions were also necessary. Zara should have cut ties with franchise partners linked to harmful ideologies and clearly condemn discriminations and violence. This aligned with Adil too, standing against injustice. And finally, they should have engaged directly with affected communities. This reflects ihsan, which means compassion and more excellence, going beyond the minimum to do what is right. So overall, the main issue is not just what Zara did, but how they failed to uphold trust, justice, and compassion in their response. Okay, so to avoid similar controversies, Zara needs strong preventive measures, not just reactive responses. Firstly, they should implement strict human rights policies for all franchise partners, ensuring that every branch follow the same ethical standards globally. Second, they should also create a global ethics review board. For example, campaigns like the Ad Jacket campaign should be reviewed before release to detect any sensitive or harmful imagery. They should also introduce mandatory content approval process, especially for global campaigns. And then training is also equally important too. Employees and designers must undergo cultural sensitivity and ethics training so they understand global ethical and social context. And then lastly, Zara must enforce a zero tolerance policy toward discrimination, ensuring that any harmful behavior is addressed immediately. So, beyond prevention, Zara must rebuild the trust and strengthen its long-term commitment. First, the company should actively support humanitarian and social initiatives, showing concern for affected communities rather than remaining silent. And then, second, Zara must ensure consistency in its values globally. Ethical standards should not change depending on the country or political context. Transparency is also important too. Zara should publish regular ethical and social responsibility reports, openly acknowledging both mistakes and improvements. In addition, collaborating with independent ethical organizations can help rebuild credibility. Ultimately, Zara also needs to integrate ethics into its core business strategy, not just as reaction to criticism. Because today, consumers expect brands to stand for values, not just profits. So the key message here is ethics is not just one-time fix, it's a long-term commitment. To conclude, this case shows business decisions must not only be guided by profit but also by strong ethical responsibilities. Zara's action that led to backlash, boycotts, and loss of trust mainly because values like amanah, ihsan, and adil were not upheld. From an Islamic perspective, businesses are entrusted with responsibility towards society and must act with justice, accountability, and also compassion. The key takeaway is that ignoring ethical issues or responding too late not only harms society but also damages the company itself. In today's global environment, companies must consider maslahah, which is the public good, and ensure their actions do not bring harm to communities. And then also staying neutral in today's world is no longer enough. Companies must choose to be ethical instead of just stay neutral. And then ultimately, businesses must not only succeed but do so with justice, trust, and compassion. And I think that's all from us. Thank you so much.